Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
What is up? What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. Blood Splatter Chatter, Verna with you. Gonna bring the fellas in just a moment. Tell you what we're doing real quick tonight. We're talking about 1960s Peeping Tom. This is week 2 of 7 of our Road to Halloween series, going over the slashers, proto-slashers, and giallo films that kind of paved the path to 1978's Halloween. So part of what we're going to be doing tonight, got a breath full, is we're going to be talking about one of the main things that I want to do in this series is kind of break down the history of the slasher series and what helped pave the path, as I'm saying. So part of what we're going to be asking is this the first slasher ever? This came out 3 months before Psycho, which a lot of people will call the first slasher. Also, what I want to discuss is how this ruined Michael Powell's career, the director. Psycho came out 3 months after, very similar movies, very similar themes, but for whatever reason, that got mixed reviews, and this ruined the man's career. He was never able to make another English movie after it. So let's bring in our first guest, a special guest, my brother from another. What up, Wes? Appreciate
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, very happy for you to be here, man. Usually it's just these Friday the 13th movies. I'm glad to get you on for this one, something a little bit more elevated from my brother. But with me, as always, the missing link. What up, bro?
I'm muted. Sorry. Can you guys hear me, right? Yeah. All right.
I can hear you.
It took a while. There's like a delay. Sorry. But what's up, fellas? Happy to be here with you talking about this this unique gem. It's going to make for a very interesting conversation. It sucks to hear that the director never made anything because it's just weird, like there are we'll get to it. Sorry.
That's all right. And bringing in the final member of our panel, the other main crew here.
What is up,
brothers, Stu, Dr. Duke.
Yes. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here. Yeah. It's gonna be great, man. Can't wait to get into it.
Hell yeah! Just setting up the premise real quick because there's probably quite a few people that obviously have not seen this movie because Psycho's so famous, it's so well known, like we were just talking about, and they're so similar. And I think you could make the argument. I think the biggest thing is that Psycho has aged better. It's kind of cooler of a movie, and it's Alfred Hitchcock is just an even bigger name. But this one, I think you could make the argument that it's a more well-crafted film, just like in the style and the look of it. The performances in both the movies are great. But since we just talked about Psycho last week, we'll probably be doing a fair amount of comparing and contrasting as we go along. But just to kick it off, I think the one other thing I wanted to say, like I said, it ruined his career. I don't know all the details. I think he came back and he made like a children's movie in England. Michael Powell did later in his career, but he ended up going to Australia. Like I said, it pretty much ruined his career. And then the film, it didn't get an American release for a couple years. And then when it did come to America, it just died. Like not many people saw it, and it was forgotten until Martin Scorsese dusted it off and found it somehow. And he was like one of the big people that was pushing it. He got it re-released at Cannes. I can't think of the year of it, but it's pretty much the reason why we're talking about it right now is because of Martin Scorsese, his push to get it restored and then just seen by more people. So, and luckily he did. But Wes, I sent you the list for Road to Halloween, and you picked this one, so clearly you got a bit of a history with it. So let's just dive into it there, man. What's your history with it, and how was the rewatch for you?
Yeah, I think my first introduction to this movie was like through one of those books in my school library that was like 500 banned movies that are so nasty, yada yada, whatever. And it was in there. It was in one of those because of its history of ruining the director's career and being banned and being seen as so horrific to the people at the time, which I think is really interesting.
It is.
But so I was always curious about it, and when I first watched it, I was actually like, okay, that was like crazy tame, but I wasn't thinking like this was like the first to do that kind of POV of the killer, and also to really dive kind of psychologically into like what he's going through, like what feeds his psychological desires, and like why he's so messed up, and like kind of empathizing with him, and looking at it in that way, like that would be horrifyingly shocking to people at the time.
Right.
And I just don't think especially British audience perhaps just weren't ready for it, whereas American audiences probably were more so ready for it, because when Psycho came out, you know, people loved it. And I've always been fascinated by it because of that kind of dichotomy. Like what about it made it so much more worse than Psycho? So like, it's just a fascinating movie. The history of it, the story of it, how it really delves into its topic. There's just so many things about it that are really fascinating, I think.
Blake, before I send it to you, because we talked about this a little bit in the opening when we talked about Psycho. And one of the things that I was saying is people would say, oh, Psycho's the first slasher, before I'd ever even heard of Peeping Tom. I think the first time I'd ever heard Peeping Tom is in Scream 4. It's one of the Ghostface. I think the question is, what was the movie to use the killer's PLV? And the answer, she says Halloween. Like, no, Peeping Tom, 1960. Started the slasher craze. But I used to always say, like, Psycho isn't a slasher to me. I was like, there's a knife kill in it, and that's why people call it a slasher. But I've come to realize, and it's up for debate. I'm not saying I know the answer, but I look at it now, like I have broadened my definition of what a slasher is by seeing more movies, like Maniac, like we mentioned last week, and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And then, like we've said, American Psycho, Pearl, with a really recent example, these killer perspective ones, because in my mind, it was always, you need teens being diced up. You need a killer with a mask that doesn't talk unless he's Freddy, or maybe Chucky. Will let it slide. But this is what I'm saying. Part of what I want to ask you is, and I still don't know. I would say after rewatching Psycho and talking about it last week, I'm like, yeah, that's a slasher. You get the couple kills, you get the knives, you get some blood. Like, to me, that's a slasher. I would say this one, I'm still open to calling it a proto slasher or a slasher. But Wes, where does it land for you? Like, how do you define a slasher? And do you think this is a slasher?
I don't know, because it seems like the definition of slasher changes like every year. Like,
right.
If we're talking about it's just like you know, a story about a serial killer that has to be a sequence of killings, you know, multiple sequence of killings, then yeah, it's a slasher. But I also think that it then can't count as the first one, because there certainly are older movies that have sequences of know, multiple sequences of killings. And so I just don't like, is it a slasher? Probably. Is it the first one? Debatable. I don't know.
Right. I looked up, and it's one of those hard like questions to Google or whatever. But I was talking to AI about it. I find that fellow a little bit more reliable on these matters. And I asked AI to make a case for an earlier film. I didn't specify one. I said, can you make a case for a film coming out prior to Peeping Tom as being the first slasher? And it said, of course I can. 1927's The Lodger, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. That I found super interesting. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it, Wes?
Yes, fantastic movie. Great movie.
So from what I understand, there's a serial killer. He's killing people with a knife. There's even some POV shots. There's multiple blonde women being killed throughout the movie. But if like I said, I haven't seen it. I would imagine that we're not seeing the kills in that movie, and we don't see. That's another thing. That's part of the debate with. There you go, right there. Nice. Wes coming through. Part of the only reason why I would question this one more than I would question Psycho is because we really never see a kill. We never see any penetration. And for some reason, there's part of me that's like, I think you kind of need that to like nail it down as a slasher. Not to take anything away from the movie, but that's why I say it's still debatable for me. But it's a good point, because there's, and then I looked into it, and there's several movies that follow a similar thing to The Lodger, where there's just a serial killer killing people.
Like, if you want to I think Psycho is closer to like the brand, like with that, as far as like making the killer a spectacle, an exhibit, almost like another worldly thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not that Norman Bates is like Jason, but in that vein, he was like kind of like a freak. But we're here, like Wes said, man, you feel such empathy with this killer by the end of it. Like when he's in that last scene and he's kind of sacrificing himself, a part of me didn't want it to happen. A part of me didn't want him to kill himself. It was, and it was like, it was really wild how, you know, the sequence of events that led to him being cast and, you know, everything that happened with this movie. But I thought the way he was able to really, you know, find layers of complexity in this character. And I agree with what you said about it being more, it feels like more of a complete fleshed out idea than Psycho. Like it feels like it's got its ducks in a row as far as like what it wants to say about the human psyche, and you know what I mean? It like even with both of these films have a little bit of exposition at the end where you have this doctor / psychologist who's kind of trying to fill you in on this character's backstory and everything.
Right.
You know, with you know him, he's taking him up on the lift and whatever, and he's trying to find a cure for a situation. It's much more integral to the story, but still, I feel like here
I prefer this.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels much more natural to the storytelling and like what they're trying to get across. It doesn't feel forced, and it's like a whole nother layer there at the end where it's like, man, you want more of that, but it's like genius how they kind of only show that in the third act where they bring his father into the situation and you start. So I think it's like it feels. It's like in some ways it's like much more of a developed, mature like horror movie, but in this like I feel like in a slasher sense, Psycho is probably like a better bet. You know what I mean? Because this feels like almost like more like, and it's kind of crazy for me to say out loud, but more cerebral than
I
Psycho.
get what you mean. Like there's more spectacle in why am I blanking
with
right
Hitchcock?
now? Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. Yeah. There's more. It's more, you know, visual spectacle as opposed to like this one. It's really getting into the psyche of this dude, and you know, it's like trauma begets trauma type of thing. You know, so there's a, and I mean, I don't know, cause all over the place about this film, but there, you know, it is like I was thrown off initially by like the contrast of like the brighter lights and stuff, but like I feel like the black and white worked better for the tone it was going for, and I do enjoy the colors and the color palette in this movie, but I
big time
don't know if it like contrasts well with like the subject matter. You know, maybe that's like why Hitchcock Psycho it was taken better because the black and white kind of gave it the mood.
Psycho feels more, and part of it is the black and white, more like a horror movie. Like you could make the argument that this isn't even a horror movie. I wouldn't say that, but I would understand someone saying that more so with Psycho. You get the look of the mom, and then like kind of like Stu, like you were saying a little bit, like the look of the killer. Even we don't get many clear shots of Norman as Mrs. Bates or whatever, but it's what we end up getting later on is these iconic outfits: Michael, Jason, Freddy, Chucky. Everybody has this iconic look that wasn't a big thing. I say it's comic books. Like comic books are what helped to make like all the people that made the films in the 70s and 80s grew up reading EC comics and
that's a great call.
Creep Show and things like that. Comic books I think really helped change the look of 80s films in general and made them lean more towards that way. But Lick, my brother, what did you think, man? I was kind of curious, like what will Lick think of this thing? Because you and I takes us a little bit sometimes with the really old films.
No, this one was interesting to me. I enjoyed it overall, but it was like because of it being more cerebral and like going into the psyche of Mark, the killer. He's like it's less of a, I don't say gimmick, but it's whereas like Norman Bates is there's you can tell there's something odd there. He's charming, but there's something odd. Mark just comes off as like a quiet guy, you know, unassuming, like quiet. He doesn't really come off as creepy as whereas Norman Bates gives off a creepy factor.
100%. I think that's part of the reason why the critics had the problem with it is because they show a kill scene and we know that it's Mark, and then the very next scene, the filmmakers act like none of that happened. And it's just showing you this awkward guy again. You're immediately rooting for him like that never happened. And then they get you like, oh shit, why do I care about this guy? And I really think that's the biggest thing that made them like the critics feel uncomfortable about it. No,
that's so, especially in like 1960. So it was an interesting film. I didn't expect it to be as it's a character piece in a lot of ways. You know, it is a horror movie, but you know, it does go into, it's more, you know, like the trauma of like what his dad did and like, you know, the control, like it's weird. It's a weird thing where his dad was trying to capture fear in children and he like up the ante with that, with his photographing death or whatever. You know, he just, this was like a weird message he took from his dad. So it's like, you know, it was really like trying to speak on, like, you know, the trauma, the generational trauma and stuff that can happen with events if they're not corrected. Whereas, like, I hate to keep bringing up Psycho, but, you know, Psycho was
part of what I want to do, especially in the beginning here. Yeah.
And Hitchcock, he's a gifted filmmaker, so he's able to dress it up, you know, but it was more spectacle there. You know, he is more for shock value. You know, it wasn't really trying to get into the psyche of Norman Bates too much.
It's just like what we were saying. I think like what he got there in Psycho like came in the script, but like in Hitchcock in interviews, so I don't really care much about A, B, C, and D. Everything besides what you're seeing in the camera, Hitchcock never really cared too much about from what he says in interviews. So I think maybe he was interested. I'm sure that's somewhat what attracted him to the material, but he was less interested in the psyche of the killer than I think Hitchcock was, to a degree at least. But Stu, my brother, who I know you seem pretty excited about it, man. I love that you were so hyped about it that it blew you away. What'd you think overall?
I did. It blew me away, man. And it's like, it's crazy to see the history behind it and learn, you know, that this guy lost his career, and because it's such a brilliant film, and it really is you know, even, you know, some twists where, like, you know, not to get too far into it, but like he killed the one girl and then stuffed her in the suitcase and set that up. That took me by surprise. Like, I think it's brilliant how, you know, also with Psycho, like these films from 1960 are still like making these impressions on me all these years later, man. But yeah, I think it's a travesty that, you know, it didn't get its just due, and it had to find its favor after the fact. But still, I think the fact that it's venerated, shout out to Scorsese for really, like,
hell yeah.
I don't know if we're talking about this film today if it isn't for Scorsese, right? So I think, you know, it's so innovative. I think not only with what it's trying to say about the human psyche, you know, your relationships with your fathers, repressed sexuality and all that stuff, but also all the things it's doing technically on like a cinematic level with the camera, and like it's just brilliant, man. It's one of those things, like one of those films I think you can revisit time and time again and get something different out of it. So yeah, it's one of those films I watched for the first time. I'm mad I haven't seen before, but also so grateful. So
hell yeah.
You know, question for you guys,
and I think it definitely belongs here at the, you know, as one of those films to be talked about, like as one of the first.
And that's my point. Whether you think it's a slasher or not, it's the other side of the coin of Psycho. It's two sides of the same coin. It's got to be part of the conversation, especially coming out that scene.
Yeah, because I think
you look at it, and you're like, oh my god, like there's so many things that, like,
Psycho did so many things cinematically, but I think subject matter wise, it was one of the first films to really turn the mirror on America and be like, look at like what you've turned into. You know what I mean? Like, look at where we're heading with, you know, the fringes of culture and serial killers and stuff like that. But I think what this film was trying to say, like at the same time, even though it was English, but like was just so much more realized and so much more, like I said earlier, so much more mature. It just felt like it had you know, Psycho for the first third of it felt like a whole nother movie.
Right.
And then they wanted to try to do something else. This, you know, you spent the whole movie with this guy and really got up close and personal with him. So I thought it was incredible, man.
Hell yeah, man. I love
you guys get Maniac vibes from the opening scene?
Oh, for sure. Right?
Sure. Absolutely, dude.
You start out, you find a hooker, you kill her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, exactly, dude. Let me read a couple comments from Slasher Fred. Says, if you guys have seen the movie Raising Cain, I have not. It has many similarities to Psycho, but it also has reference to Peeping Tom because of the abuse he got from his father. I've heard of that. Is that? I was about to say something I'm probably wrong about. Is Nicolas Cage in that? I'm thinking of Raising Arizona. You're thinking of
Raising Arizona.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah. Slasher Fred also says, what makes Peeping Tom a classic is that it came out 18 years before Halloween. And of course, we all remember the classic murder of Judith Myers, but it's all done with the camera. Yeah, absolutely, brother. I mean, to me, that's the one thing. Like, I don't know. I wonder what you guys think about that. And I guess we can get into I wish we'd show the kills. Let's save that. We'll get into it a little bit later. But Wes, I wanted to ask you, just kind of comparing this to Psycho, like what do you think like stands the test of time? Like I think the big thing, like I already mentioned, is the cool factor.
Yeah,
Norman's just cooler than Mark, and all like Hitchcock is cooler than Michael Powell, and then there's the British factor. I think Hollywood, or at least maybe it's just I'm biased, obviously. It just is Hollywood's a little bit cooler than the British film industry of 1960. And that makes it,
many restrictions.
That makes that too. Yeah, I wonder. That's what I wonder. Like, could they have showed? Was that a decision that was made by the government to not show a knife, or is that like that was an artistic choice? But how do you think it compares, and how do you think it holds up?
I have a hard time comparing the two. I actually think there's another British film that compares better with Peeping Tom, which is Blow Up by Michelangelo Antonioni, and it's about this photographer who accidentally photographs what he thinks might be a murder, so he keeps blowing the picture up and up and up and trying to get more details out of it. But of course, as you blow something up, it becomes, more grainy. You can't really make the details out past a certain point. And so that's like, they're both films kind of about like observation and how like, the people who observe too closely kind of tend to either alter or destroy what they're observing. And then when you compare that with Psycho, I feel like Psycho is kind of this pulpy kind of, definitely fits the slasher brand, as Stu was saying, a lot better than the character study of Peeping Tom. And I think they're both interested in different things. Like I think Psycho is very much like a populist movie. It wanted to be shocking and talked about and popular. Yes. And I think Peeping Tom wanted to kind of delve into this really disturbing psychology. And, one is going to be, and I think that's, exactly. I think that shows also in the audience reactions to the two. Like one is, deeply uncomfortable for the purpose of being deeply uncomfortable and to make people think and like talk about psychology a little bit more, and these kind of subjects. And the other is deeply uncomfortable to be like shocking and be like, oh, that was fun. And also something that's really interesting is that I feel like Psycho kind of uses Norman Bates psychology as like an excuse.
Yes.
Like, oh, he did that.
It's like you don't have to worry about it. He's one of them.
He's just like crazy, right? Yeah. And then Peeping Tom, more like, I don't know, was more interested in being like, he's very wrong in what he's doing, but like there's a reason somebody did something to him, and he grew up with this. I think it's just I think they're fascinating movies that both are going for very different things, but I think the audience reaction to both of them is almost more fascinating than the movies themselves.
Right. That's cool. And it's like
almost.
No, please go ahead. Like,
I'm almost curious. Like you brought up the kill thing earlier, Vernal, like showing the kills. I'm almost curious as maybe because the subject matter was so heavy that they had to compromise in some sort of way. You can't be like visceral or like psychological and have these crazy kills at the same. You gotta let go of one or the other.
Exactly. I mean, they even cut away when he's killing himself. Like they cut away for a second, and come back, and you see that it's happened. Like I think that was very much like, they were like, we can't show actual like death happening on screen, right?
And the absence of violence like helps you and helps endear you more to him as well. You know what I mean?
I think part of it,
you never really see him get super gory with it.
I think the first time that I watched the movie was when I was disappointed by it. I kept on thinking we're gonna get some more. Like partially because I'd heard, oh my God, this ruined his career. The critics thought he was trash and disgusting. I'm like, oh, what do we see? What did he do? But it's not about that. It's about how he made them feel, which is a much trickier thing to do. I was going to jump into the characters, but we're on the kills. So let's just jump in and talk about this. I'm trying to think. There's 3 kills, and we don't really see any of them. I guess there's 3. There's the prostitute in the opening scene. There's the stand-in actress. That's the really elaborate one. And then there's Minnie, the porno actress that he kills. They really just allude to him killing. They don't even they don't even have like a build-up suspense scene when it comes to that. They're just like, it cuts away and like, oh, he must have killed her, which is kind of, they would never do that in a film these days. So it's interesting to see before you had everything come before the expectations that are set by other filmmakers. Audiences just like me. That's why I was expecting more. And then when it gets less and less visceral as the movie goes, I was like, oh. And then at the end, when Mark kills himself, it's like, oh, I just want a little bit of blood. Like, give me something.
Seriously.
But I'll say my favorite out of them is, and it's the like set piece of the movie, and Mace to me is when he kills the stand-in actress. I don't have a better name for her, but to me that feels like an 80s elaborate kill, or a modern day like slasher. This elaborate kill where it's just like all built up and all suspense, but there's so much more because he's not a Michael or a Jason or a Freddy. There's so much more like intrigue and what's going on in the characters' minds than you normally get in a slasher. I think in some ways it's like one of the best slasher kills of all time because of that. It's so much more complicated. And then later, when you're just let's just cut her head off. The directors don't need to let's make this really cool interplay of what the characters are thinking. So those limitations are really what breeds creativity. But what's your thought, Wes, on just like the suspense of the film, the horror, and what's your favorite moment of the horror?
I love that whole like dance sequence with the stand-in girl. Honestly, I think it's brilliant that they're building up that much suspense over something that is kind of a musical number. Like,
right.
It's
I
just
love
like
that.
it's like, how am I feeling scared right now when this is happening? But like you feel it because you know what he's gonna do to her. And I just think it's brilliant how he managed to build that suspense up through such a contradictory way. And then I also just found it interesting. I rewatched it today, but originally in my memory, I was like, oh, doesn't his like killing kind of progress? It starts off with like a street walking, sex worker, and then it goes to like the porn actress, and then it goes to the actress, right? And then, but no, it's not. It doesn't progress that way. It's like the other way around.
Right.
But initially, I was like, that's kind of interesting that he like is progressing up like a class system. And I was, when I rewatched it, I was like, that was in my mind as I was rewatching it. And it kind of is like there still, but not in the way that I thought it was. Like each woman he kills is a performer of some sorts, like a sex worker performs, sex with the person that buys them, the actress, and then the porno photographer, the model woman. And I just think that was really interesting that he is obsessed with like women who like perform, like they sell an authenticity, and like he's trying to get the authentic performance of their fear from them right before he kills them.
Right. That is cool.
I just thought that was interesting. And he even says like, oh, I put on the red light to the stand-in lady, like, and the red light could like be symbolic of like a prostitute, a sex worker, like, oh, I got the red light on, so you're mine now,
right.
like, and how he just views women as objects. And like that's what makes it so difficult with him and Helen, is because he starts to see the humanity in her more so. And like I just thought that was a really intriguing, like watching it through that lens this time around. I like picked up a lot of that, and I thought that was really interesting.
Hell yeah. Mr. Link, my brother, what do you think? What's your favorite moment of or just what do you think of those aspects of the flick?
Yeah, I gotta go with the opening kill, just because immediately I was like, Maniac. Oh yeah, they totally stole. Maniac totally stole from this movie. I can respect the influence, but I was, obviously I haven't seen enough, but I was kind of like shocked to have the POV aspect. I was like, man, 1960, full color. I kind of thought they were gonna be a little bit more savage with it,
Same,
but
yeah.
it's still. It was still shocking for it. I could see how it would be shocking for its time. Because especially after that, you're just sorry, I don't if you guys heard that big. You're empathize, it goes immediately into empathizing with the serial killer, or so it's a weird contrast. But yeah, I'll go with the opening kill. That was my favorite.
Hells yeah. Mr. Stupak.
I mean, man, it's hard not to go with the set piece one. And also, I love that when they put the record back on, like, and the cops are there, and the one cop's like,
yes,
you know what I mean?
That's what's so great, is because we get that kill, and then I might even like the second bit where he's waiting for everyone to discover it. That's even what makes it cooler than the build.
Dude, the second bit was one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's like, oh shit, like he's really doubling down. Things are really moving forward quickly. It's not a kill, but my other favorite interaction sequence was him and the blind mother.
Yeah,
that was hysterical and fucking crazy, and it was cool to also see this like main kill on film played back and him kind of like evaluate it in real time. So that was like
Same.
That was my other favorite part.
You know what?
Where we almost got something.
I like when they do that at the beginning. They show us the opening scene in color, which first of all, I just fucking love the look of the movie, right? When we see it, just the color, that opening scene down that street with the street lights and everything. I don't know, it just looks so goddamn good.
It does.
But then right after that, when he's watching it, and now it's black and white, and they throw the music in and they just play the whole thing again, or most of it again. I just think that was such a cool creative decision.
Yeah.
You made me think, the blind lady. I know you're a fan, Stu. Did it cross anybody's mind like Red Dragon or Manhunter, where they have the blind lady and he's got her there, and remember in that movie he's watching the people that he's been stalking that he's gonna kill, and the blind lady's like, "What are you watching?" "Oh, it's just something for work." And I wonder, is it just a coincidence, or is that inspired from this movie? Because it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
I started to think of that even before the blind woman was there, and he's just watching it or about to watch it with his with Helen. With his boo thing.
I love like how it goes from her questioning him, and it feels so poignant. She's like, "Why aren't you telling me what you're watching? What I feel your hesitation." And then him throwing himself against the wall, like, "Oh, it's not perfect. It's not." Like, and then also like when she gets up against the wall and she just turns like, I love how she goes from like almost hilarious and hysterical to like asking him like questions again. Like I just love that transition. It's like, why are you being quiet again? Why? It's like, bitch, you were just up against the wall, like begging for your life like 5 seconds ago. It was that sequence was just wild as hell. And I love the way they planted the seeds for it, right? Like when he was first in the apartment and he was leaving and he had the door open and she like looked behind and you knew. And I think that again, for not to sell the time short or anything, but for a film from 1960, just having the blind woman be the one that's gonna figure him out here I thought that was brilliant. And like you said, it's cool to think about echoes in horror films since. So
I love her line. She's got some line, something about like a blind person always lives in the floor above them. I visit this room every night. That was like, whoa. Like I just never would have thought that way.
Yeah.
I
love discovered her. Like he heard that clank and he like put the spotlight on her. It was fucking awesome, dude. It was like, what the fuck is going on?
Why is this light on my face? Let's dive into the characters. There's not a ton of characters, but luckily there's not a ton of us. So I think we all can pick one decent one. But kick it off for us, Wes. You want to highlight? It doesn't have to be your favorite, it just has to be the one you want to talk about.
I think Helen is a fascinating character. I don't know why she's interested in this man. Like the first time they meet, they have like the weirdest conversation where he trauma dumps on her. He's like, "Let me tell you about all the things my dad did to me." And she's like, "Okay, thanks, bye." And then she's like, all of a sudden, like, "He's nice. I want to date him."
Yeah, I wish you would
show me cinema. Show me.
Yeah,
I wish you would join us. It's like, this is the last thing I expected you to say. You were just. It's kind of like what you were just asking about his mom. Like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She's terrified of this guy. Then right afterwards, she's over it. It's like kind of explains why her daughter is the same way.
Yeah,
or is it the writing?
Aroused.
She's great and she's beautiful. She really fits the role.
Yeah,
and I think this is stuff that I read. I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but it is like in 1960, she was a pretty like standout character for her. Like she's pursuing him. She's throwing this party, and she's kind of like. We don't see her as being this like rebel that she was looked at the time, or very progressive person of the time. But I think Missing Link is detained at the moment, probably with child. But Stu, you got a character you want to highlight?
Oh man, I gotta go with our boy.
Go with him.
Yeah, I think he was just incredible. It was an incredible performance. So vulnerable. You were engaged with him all the time. You had I felt real emotional stakes with him and like what was going to happen to him. And like I said, even at the end with the suicide, it was I had mixed feelings about it. And I just love the slow burn reveal of like all these things that he was grappling with. And I love like him going up on the lift with the psychiatrist, coming down and like realizing, man, like I can't like that fix is not going to work for me. And like, you know what I mean? Like it was so dope how in the middle of this murder investigation, like where he's the prime suspect, not really, but it was just so dope that how consumed he was with all this. And I thought that was seamlessly like worked in throughout the movie, where you were it felt very real and very believable and realistic in a way. You know what I mean? Like this could happen, and these type of events could cascade one on top of the other until it reached a boiling point. And it felt like we were in the middle of that the whole time. And his performance is just so unique. When I think about like serial killers I've truly empathized with or really seen another side of, like it's crazy to think about what he was able to achieve. And like I know nothing else of the guy. I've never seen him before nor since, and I think that's a travesty, because he was brilliant in this. He really was, and I love whatever. I know they had another star lined up, and then things change around. And
I read something about that too. It was like first of all, he's Austrian, which, knowing that and then watching it again, I was like, oh, okay, you pick it up here and there, but I think it adds so much. I think there's something about him, like it gives him like this kind of like different look, like he stands out, and just like that little hint of an accent makes him kind of alien to everybody else.
And dude, and you're talking about post World War II America.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a guy with an Austrian accent, like immediately people are going to think his dad was a Nazi who just liked to torture kids and watch them writhe in pain. It's like that adds that immediately. I think even as for us watching in 2025, it's like, oh, this is 1960. Like, what's going on here? Like, right. I thought that was sick.
He can be so like would you guys agree? Maybe I'm just reading around, but he's attempting to do a British accent the entire movie, right? He's playing a British man, but with that little Austrian slip. Because there's sometimes where he's so damn jolly. Like at one point when she's telling him about like she's got the gig to make this book, and he's like, the way he taps on, oh goody, I'm like, oh my god, and that's right after we see the most elaborate kill of the whole movie. And that's when there's another line where she's like, I'm here for some advice. And he goes, from me? And I'm like, did advice mean something different in 1960? Why? He's like, I could not believe it. I just love that so much. But Lake, my brother, I know you were gone a bit. We talked about Mark and Helen so far. Helen being his love interest. You got one you want to highlight, or you want to add something to either of those two? That's fine too.
Those were my favorites, but I'll highlight the little model that he was interviewing or he photo shooting at the beginning. I love the line she said something about yeah, I got into a bit of trouble with my boyfriend yesterday. Like I almost ran into my fiance, and
yeah,
I was like, yo, that's so poetic.
That's some British humor right there, because I almost missed it the first time.
Yeah, so dry.
That little line made her stand out to me. She was so posh. But yeah,
I thought the girl with the hair, what do they call it? I don't want to offend this woman who's probably 80 years old now or dead. Like the one with the hair lip, I think. I thought we were gonna get more of her. I was very intrigued by that. She sees her as that you can feel me from the waist down or the head down. He's like, no, I want it all. Like I thought that was gonna lead to something. I thought he was gonna kill her. Same, obviously.
Yeah. Same. But, I definitely thought she was gonna be a target.
I'll highlight the stand-in actress. She's just so like I said, it's part of the reason why that's my favorite scene in the movie and just so cool. She's so likable. She's so lovable and jolly and just having a good time dancing around, performing and everything. And she doesn't know. And then he even says the line. He's like, imagine someone is in the room that's going to kill you. He knows it and you don't. And like he just says, like, that's what that whole scene was about. It's like the whole thing. So I thought she was fantastic. And then not that his performance is great and then we don't get much of him, but the main cop, he was good, he was solid, but it's something that I just want to like kind of track as we go through these movies is how the police are treated in the movies. Are they in the movie? Because a lot, like I think most of the 80s slashers, they just like, we're at a camp, there's no cops or whatever. They just kind of they really minimize their roles. But in the 60s and in the Giallo movies, and a lot of times they play a heavier role. So I think it's kind of in this, they're competent. And in Psycho, we had the private eye, and he was quite competent. So I think it kind of is an indicator of either like the way people were feeling at the time or the way directors felt that they could talk about the government at the time. So it's kind of just an interesting thing to track as we go through these flicks. But what do I want to get into? The cinematography and the music, I guess, is what we got to touch on. I think like Stu, I know, well, he's gone, but I know Stu said he watched it on YouTube. It was on Tubi up until really recently, and I said it's on Zumo right now, which I'd
I
never
watched it on
heard of.
Tubi.
How did? Oh, it was on Tubi?
Yeah, still on Tubi.
Oh, okay. Did it look good? Anyway, dude, this looks fucking great. Great. And then like I checked it out on YouTube because my wife kicked me out of the living room, so I had to watch it on my iPad. And I was like, oh, I felt bad for Stu who said he watched it on YouTube. It's like, bro, you're not getting the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure it looked great on Tubi, but it's such a beautiful, like the restoration job they did on it.
Yeah.
Top notch. You'll get some movies that are restored that look better than others. This is one of the best, and just the use of colors. We're going to be doing Blood and Black Lace next week. And right off the bat, you'll notice a similarity. Just like the Technicolor, people were just like had the ability to use color. And they were like, let's use the shit out of it. We want bright, or maybe it's also just an indicator of the times. There was a lot of bright colors being used. But to me, that's the main thing that I think about when I think of the look of this film. It's just the crispness of the restoration. Beautiful. One of my favorite things about old movies is just the long shots, the long takes, the way they let you like sink into the movie without the quick cuts and everything. And the music is great. So if you guys want to elaborate on that, just the jazz music, the jazz piano, it can be either happy and giddy or so like fucking demented sounding. And it always seems like Suspiria's this way. And I think some other Italian films where you're almost like, can the characters hear this music? Like, is that what's making them act this way? And there's a bunch of times in this where it's like, dude, are they hearing this too? But Wes, what'd you think? Just the cinematography and the music.
Yeah, I love the cinematography, especially when it puts you kind of in the main character Mark's POV. Because like the first time he meets the woman with the cleft palate, he like gives her, she's like standing to the side, you know, she's hiding the one side from her, and you only see her from the one side, but the camera does like a look over on her, and like immediately you're like, oh, you know, that's how Mark is introducing, like that's how, like he doesn't even say hi, he just looks over at her, gives her the look over, and then gets right back to like whatever he's doing. He's like, oh yep, I've seen her now. And I just think that's really interesting, like when it does do that, when it puts it into his POV, like it's always like he's observing something that he probably shouldn't be, like and so I think that probably was another thing that maybe made British audiences feel really icky at the time,
right?
And I think the cinematography is really brilliant at that. It also is like crazy colorful. It very much has like that Technicolor like color to it, and I think that like I can agree, I can see the point that like maybe that kind of hinders it being a horror film a little bit, but at the same time I think like I don't know, there's something about it like that, just because he's a photographer, he's taking these images and he wants them to be perfect. Like he's upset because he faded out too early on the death of one lady, and he's like, oh, it's not perfect. And so like the fact that the movie itself looks very like made up, like it looks like a movie, right. It looks very classical in that sense, I think works to that end at least. And I think I love how it looks personally. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, too, and like you already mentioned with the POV, like I love, like that's another thing that just like, because part of what the movie is about filmmaking. Yeah, it's also just like TV was new, like so many people spending so much of their time watching other people. So like just voyeurism itself was so like almost a new idea to a lot of people. They were like thinking about it more and the idea of that. But having those crosshairs and knowing that you're looking through a lens where like Michael Myers and that, like it's not a lens, it's his eyes. There's something different about it being a lens, like adds this other cinematic dimension that like fits the themes and everything. But Lake, my brother, what you think of the look of the film, the music?
Music, I enjoyed it. I can't give too much insight to it. I think it did its job, but I love the look of the film, like the color palette. I what's the word I'm looking for? It reminded me of like the flower power movement that, you know, very colorful, even though that wasn't in it, you know, just
it's the beginning,
bright colors. Yeah, with the models and shit. But I appreciate it for that. It's hard pressed to find another film, a horror film, that's so cerebral and psychological that has such a high contrast, bright color palette. You know, it's an interesting mix. But I dug it. So it made for an interesting, unique look.
I feel like it's a precursor to like a lot of it. It doesn't feel Italian, but it looks Italian, like in a way. It's that
I can see that.
mixing the beauty with the horror. like, which is a lot of what you get in the Italian giallo and the later stuff from Argento. But Stu, you got anything to add to that? Music, the look of the film?
No, I love the crosshairs on those camera shots, how it makes it feel like it's a target. And then the music, I think, is brilliant, man. I agree with what you said, how it goes from kind of like, barroom good time to, life and death crescendo. I thought, especially there at the end with the stuff with his dad, like it's so weird that a piano score kind of works like that, but
right,
it totally works here. It does. So.
Yeah,
I love. Well, there's something about jazz that is just like, disorienting. You know what I mean? It's so sporadic, and like that guy wasn't reading off of music sheet. He was just riffing and going with it. You can really tell it's so chaotic.
So what did they like feed him scenes from it? He was just playing along to it. Is that?
I'm totally just guessing. I just know like jazz in general is improv. Like, you know what I mean? Unless it's like a written piece of jazz music, but a lot of live jazz is just an idea that you're riffing on, and that's what jam bands are. Jam bands are is kind of a form of jazz, and it's the same thing. A lot of like improvising. But Stu, we'll wrap it around this way, and let's do the themes before we rate this bad boy. There's a lot of themes. That's a lot of what we've been talking about is so thematically rich. There's all this stuff with his dad. So beyond that, or maybe some of that, what's it speaking to you, Stu?
Man, I think the most significant thing I got out of it was just like the voyeurism, and I think that's where it still rings true today. Is like just our interest in other people's lives, right? And like the advent of seeing the advent of the camera back then, and like really being a new thing to where we are now with the invasiveness of cell phones and satellites and drones and you name it. You know what I mean? So I just think and that's ultimately, I think, why it made a lot of people uncomfortable is like we do have a morbid interest in one another that we're kind of scared to admit or really reckon with a lot of the times. And, I think this movie, shown a brilliant spotlight on that, particularly at the end with the twist with like the mirror, and he wanted to allow people to see themselves while they die. Like it just really for, televisions are still kind of in their infantile stage here, and just to be saying those type of things they're saying inside of this movie and have it still ring true in 2025, I thought was incredible. So voyeurism, I think, as a whole, like in our morbid fascination with it, was one of the pervasive themes to me.
Hell yeah, man! It's like I was thinking this. It's like a precursor to Wes Craven. We were talking about so many of his films where he wanted to bring people in the theaters with the promise of bloodshed, and then once they got the bloodshed, they were like, "Oh my god!" It's like this is what you asked for. It's kind of turning it back around on the viewer. But Stu or Link, my brother, what you got?
Definitely there's that voyeurism aspect. There's like repression, sexual repression, the trauma. There's a lot in this movie. Take your pick, but it's
right.
It was an interest. There really is many themes going on at play, but it did a fine job at really digging into those themes and balancing them. They all got their fair share of evaluation.
Right. And it doesn't feel like I've said about like some Cronenberg films where it's all theme. Like everything is about the theme. I mean, it is. It's theme heavy, but it's entertainment too. It's about making entertaining scenes within the movie. But what you got, Wes? What's it saying to you?
Yeah, so much. It says so much. I feel like there's a lot of interesting ways you could look at this movie. Just like the man that comes into the drug shop for his porn.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned him. That should have been my character.
Dude, I forgot all about that. And the schoolgirl comes in.
She comes in to get candy, and he's hiding his porn in a manila envelope that says education on it, and he's wrapping it up in his newspapers before he leaves. And like he's kind of like a microcosm of what the whole thing's saying. Like he's kind of like a version of Mark coming to get his porn. Obviously, Mark's porn causes a lot more harm to the people because he's killing them. But like, like that's his candy. That's he has to hide it and he has to wrap it up into something educational. He has to like say, this is to discover, this is to finish my father's work of like what is fear and what does it do to the nervous system or whatever. Like he has to wrap up his addiction, his desire for this weird like porn that he needs of watching people die. And he has to wrap it up he has to justify it with education, with science, like because I'm in the process of discovery here. And I think that's just really, I think it's a very fascinating movie.
Hell yeah, man. And the only thing I will add to that is I think it was the same thing with Psycho. Like Freud was big at the time. People were beginning to study Freud. It was becoming mainstream where more people were like, oh my God, if we do terrible things to our kids, they might be terrible adults. I had no idea. And that's a big part of what's going on. With Psycho, obviously, it's the mother. With this one, obviously, it's the father. And I think it was, I don't know, it's another thing that probably made people uncomfortable. But another just thing about like, it's really funny how it's like a precursor to so much of what we get in the future slasher movies, specifically Jason and maybe a touch of Michael Myers. Yeah, definitely a touch of Michael Myers too, where it's like seeing sexual acts makes you violent. And there's something in the movie, obviously it's created from his dad, where he's like compelled to look at people. He can't help it. Like when he sees that he's walking with Helen and he looks over and this couple's making out and like he has to look at them. And there's just something interesting and cool and like demented about that.
The shot too when it's like the literal Peeping Tom shot where they're all having the party downstairs and like he like comes up into the window and the guy's like, oh, it's just that weird chap from upstairs.
Yeah.
It is. And then y'all having a conversation with that dude after that. It's like,
I love how the guy that Helen is obviously they don't like ever talk about it, but clearly there's this one guy that wants to get with Helen, and he keeps on acting like he doesn't see Mark. He's showing clearly that he doesn't see him as a threat to take Helen away. He's like, oh, I don't even notice you. Oh, hey, old boy, how are you? But I think we done did it, fellas. Let's go ahead, wrap this bad boy around, give us our rating out of 5, and we'll get up out this bitch. So Wes, let's start with you, man. Out of 5, where are you rating Peeping Tom?
This has got to be a 5 out of 5 for me. Not only just because the movie is so good, but because I think contextually it's just fascinating, the history, the audience reaction at the time, and the way it stood the test of time, and the way that it clearly continues to inspire audiences today, and people are continually rediscovering it. Like it just barely came out on that Criterion 4K. That's a new release. My release is fairly new too. The new
what
4K
do you got there? Let me see the cover of that.
This is the Studio Canal 4K release. It came out just before Criterion announced it, and so I got this from the UK sent over. And then Criterion announced it, and I was like, I didn't even need to do that.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah. I went cheap on this one. I actually just got the Blu-ray. I didn't go 4K. And in Blu-ray, it still looks gorgeous.
It's the same restoration. It looks amazing. They did a really good job on it. But yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. It's a fantastic film.
Hell yeah, man. I love it, man. I love that you were able to join us too.
Thank you.
Link, what are you giving it, dude?
First watch, I'll give this one a 4.5 with room to grow. It was an interesting one. I don't think I was necessarily expecting this from this era, like this, in the 60s. It was nuanced. I was expecting a little bit more shock. So I'm still internalizing, but I did appreciate it. It's a unique film. And I'm glad fucking Scorsese brought it up. So and I'm glad you brought it up and exposed it to us. But yeah, I'll give it a solid 4.5.
Hell yeah, man. I love it. I love that you enjoyed it, bro. Mr. Stu, where you at?
Yeah, man, 5 out of 5. I was blown away. I think it's one of those films that definitely deserves to be talked about on the same plane with Psycho, if not on a whole nother level, and just one of the most brilliant, empathetic portrayals of a serial killer I've ever seen on screen. So, and it just does so many things that keep you guessing and keep you intrigued in 2025. And for that, from 1960, I gotta give it a 5 out of 5. So yeah, incredible, dude.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm kind of torn, man, because I came in thinking like 4.5, 4.75, but I can't tell you an issue that I have with the film. Like, I think if you're comparing it to, that's part of what I was thinking. I do prefer Psycho because I do think it's more like a horror movie. It feels more modern. It's cooler. It's the biggest.
Psycho's more American too.
American,
Yeah,
I'm
you know what I mean?
I'm American.
It's very American.
This was supposed to be red, white, and blue, but it turned out pink, bro. I am American. So, but I think I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go with you guys, with Stu and Wes. I'm gonna give it a 5 because I watched this thing 3 times now, and I legit like it better each time. Stu, like I was telling you guys, the first time that I saw it, I was a little bit underwhelmed because of, like I said, I heard it was crazy. It's this wild film, and I kept waiting for something, and that disappointed me. Then watching it since then, I love that character. I like Mark more than I like Norman Bates. Not necessarily the performances, but just like you connect to that character. I like him more than Marion Crane, which is probably the more important thing because he's actually the lead of the film. And just it is gorgeous, and I love that soundtrack. I love the music. They're not soundtrack, but the score so damn much. So I'll go ahead and give this bad boy a 5, man. But you know what? I didn't get my shit together. I'm about to pull up the slideshow, tell you what we're doing next week. I didn't make one. I didn't do that. So shit, man. While I scramble around and look for my road to Halloween thing, so I can at least promote that. Wes, why don't you tell people where they can find you online, what you're up to?
Awesome. You can find me online at Screen Brulee at the TikTok here, and on YouTube and Instagram. And right now, I am just looking for work. I just graduated.
I love it.
Now I'm in that grind. I'm looking for full-time work. Woohoo! So that's what I do. If you want to hire me as an editor, you can find me over there.
There you go. There it is. I got something at least. This is, as I said, this is week 2 of our 7-week Road to Halloween series. And next week, Blood and Black Lace, Mario Bava film. Probably, I think it's like the second. I feel comfortable saying it's the second like giallo that was ever made. And giallo is one of the biggest influences on the American slasher boom. Mario Bava being one of the most influential, one of the most important directors in horror history, or genre history for sure. So I love Bava's stuff, and this is a pretty cool one that I'm looking forward to doing. I know Robbie will be here. I will be at an Airbnb somewhere. We still haven't booked it. We're gonna get an Airbnb, and they better have good fucking Wi-Fi because I'm doing the show from there. So wish us luck. Hopefully it's not a goddamn mess. But Link,
where you going, bro? You going on vacation?
Dude, honestly, we haven't even decided. We've been talking about this for months, and we're just like, we'll get an Airbnb by a beach somewhere. And we just keep on pushing it off. It's like, dude, we need to get this Airbnb. We need to figure it out. But luckily, they're everywhere. So we'll find. We might head back to Michigan. Link, we might head back your way. We liked Michigan so much last year, and it's just nicer this time of year than Illinois is. So we might be up your way. But speaking of you, brother, you got anything going on? You over on PCP or anything?
I don't think. What's the next one he's doing? Can you guys remember his?
I don't know.
I'm on the next. I know I'm on the Terminator.
Oh, Terminator, so, Terminator, bro. Yeah.
I'll be over there Monday, and then back over here every Thursday night.
That's what I'm talking about.
9 p.m. Eastern.
Stu, I think I might have an old thumbnail for you, right? Yeah. Oh, by the way, go check this out. Great conversation.
Yeah.
Dude, over on Fable's channel. Yeah, thanks. This is fun rewatch for me. True Romance. One collection down. Go check that out. And then
man, Dr. Doom's Fan Club, IG and YouTube, new comic book content every week. So come check me out.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thanks for having me.
You also do this little show called Ink and Insights on Wednesday
Insights every Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect. We did it. All right. Appreciate you guys again. Wes, appreciate you joining. Glad you could make it for this one. You guys in the chat, you are fantastic. I love you. And we'll see you next Thursday for Blood and Black Lace. Go check it out. It's on Shudder.
Oh, good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.